Curtis Calhoun here with MMA News. My next guest is coming off of another big win over Fernie Garcia at UFC Fight Night, Hermansson versus Pyfer. It's Hyder Amil joining me for the first time. How's it going, Hyder?
Going great. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Once again, it's nice to meet you. Nice to chat with you. Obviously, you've had plenty of time to soak in that big win. I know you were coming off of being sick too. Just kind of take me through the whirlwind that has been the last week and a half, and how you're feeling about your performance.
You know what? The last week and a half was amazing. It's been a lot of fun. I'm from San Francisco, San Rafael, which is Niner territory, especially back in the day. So it was really awesome to make my debut when the Niners were in the Super Bowl. I wish they won the Super Bowl. That'd be the cherry on top. But at least, we got one Bay Area win. This whole week has just been amazing. I mean, it's been really busy, just because of interviews and people hitting me up and stuff like that. But I got a little bit of time to deflate. I was in Yosemite to get a little mental and physical break from everything before I start getting back to work again.
How important is it for you to have that time to yourself where you can kind of clear your mind out, especially after making your UFC debut? You talked a little bit about the nerves and all that stuff leading up to it. Like, how important is that for you to have some time for yourself?
I think it's important for anyone, if especially I've been working for 3 months for this. I had two opponent changes and a last minute fill in, so it's been quite the roller coaster. Game planning for those different styles. I stayed the course. I trained my butt off. I don't really drink, or I don't drink, period. So except for after my win, I got to party a little bit, and it was a really good way to deflate a little bit. But I feel like for anyone's mental and physical well-being, I think it's good to have a little bit of leisure time and time for themselves to kind of deflate from everything, so that they don't burn out.
How rough was it, planning for three different opponents essentially, right? Like in terms of like making your UFC debut and everything that comes with that as well. Like how difficult was it in terms of game planning and all that?
Well, my first guy was this Kazakh wrestler, right-handed guy, a stocky, muscular dude, and then he drops out. So I was training a lot of wrestling, and I train everything as well, but I emphasize where they're strong at. Then I got thrown a left-handed Muay Thai guy. So then I was like, okay, I got to make sure I get some southpaw work with some high-level Muay Thai people, because he's a very sharp, dangerous striker. And then he pulls out, and I end up fighting a boxer, who's a little shorter. So the game plans change, but once you train for a grappler, then you train for a striker, you're pretty much covering all the bases, and you're ready for whoever it's going to be at that point.
Throughout your career, you've been known as a very exciting fighter. I've watched you a little bit in LFA and obviously Dana White's Contender Series. How much do you feed off of the crowd's presence, and what was the experience like of fighting in the Apex versus having a full UFC crowd?
You know what? I Early on in my career, I've been fighting hard fights. I think I had one regional fight, and then I just started fighting on Bellator, SAP Center, then LFA, and then Contenders. So I'm more used to the crowd, and honestly, the LFA crowds, I put on these crazy shows where it's just super loud. I like made the whole stadium explode because of the fights that I had. So fighting the Apex, it was quieter, but honestly, I could fight in a back room. I could fight in a bus. It doesn't matter to me, man. Like, a fight's a fight, and I drown out everything. I will say the win is way better when there's a crowd. I like to jump on that cage and wild out a little bit. So that I miss a lot.
How much pride do you take in not only the success that you've had inside the cage, but also being entertaining too, right? Like you have such an entertaining style. Like how much pride do you take in knowing that you're going out there and being entertaining too?
I I really like the fact that people rewatch my fights. They contact me and tell me like, "Dude, I can't stop rewatching this fight, your LFA fight, or your contender fight," and so I take a lot of pride in that, and that's just how I fight. They don't call me the Hurricane for no reason, but I also want to make sure that that's not. I'm not always trying to please the crowd. You know, that's one thing my coaches say. Like, hey, you don't always have to please the crowd. It's about winning first. So that's what I prioritize more than anything. But if I can get it done in style, that's what I'm going to do.
Do you feel like some fighters kind of fall into that trap of being crowd pleasers a little bit too much and trying to make that a little bit too much of a focus?
Absolutely. I feel like sometimes they're not fighting smart, you know, and the one thing I always want to do is exploit my opponent's weakness and impose my strengths. And in a fight, I want to make sure I'm doing that, you know, and it's just my style to kind of bring the pace and stuff like that. But not everyone you want to fight like that with. So I definitely keep that in mind, especially with my contender fight where I was fighting a nonstop wrestler. I realized like, okay, I'm trying to pressure way too much, put me in these wrestling exchanges way too much. I could have fought a little bit smarter that fight, if I'm going to be honest. But I'm glad I got the win, and I'm glad I got that learning experience without taking a loss.
And how much of a confidence booster was it specifically with this last fight of getting the win after everything you've been through with the 3 opponent changes and all that? Like, how much of a confidence booster was it for you that you were still able to go out there and perform really well?
It was a huge boost to my confidence. It was a nice check off the box that I made my UFC debut, and put on the show and made it exciting, and it was really comfortable. Honestly, when I was in there, I was like, okay, it's really comfortable, and I so much so I almost took a fight 2 weeks later, you know. But my coaches told me like, hey, let's give it a little bit more time. But the feeling, the rush, I did everything well this time. Normally I have to work a lot, but this fight was my first fight where I got to recover more and not work so much. So it paid dividends, and if all my fights are like that and better, man, I'm excited for the future.
2 weeks later, so were you potentially having an offer to fight on this weekend's card, or tell us a little bit about that?
Uh, yeah, the March 2nd card. So not
Oh,
this
okay.
week, but the following weekend. They threw me a guy that I feel like would be an exciting fight, but I feel like I would dominate a lot, you know? So I told them, hey, if they don't find him a guy in the next 2 weeks, I'll fight him in a month. Because I like the matchup. I think it's a crowd pleasing matchup, and I feel like it works heavily in my favor.
I gotcha. And have there been talks in terms of, you know, your UFC return in terms of what you're thinking timeline wise and all that?
The very next day, I talked to my coach and like, hey, could you speak to Sean Shelby or managers? I want to get in there as soon as possible. I want early April, late May maximum. But yeah, just, you know, if you hear of anything, let me know because it honestly, I had so much fun in the fight and just fight week and all that, like how professional UFC is and everything that it makes it so enjoyable for the fight. I'm not a kind of guy who like gets too nervous. You know, I feel some nerves back there, but I love it. I need those nerves to make me sharper. So I just can't wait to get back in there again.
I want to switch gears a little bit here before we wrap things up here. Did you get a chance to watch Alexander Volkanovski, Ilia Topuria? How'd you rate that fight, and what were your thoughts on how the fight played out?
I did watch the fight, and I noticed Alex was kind of like on his toes. He's finally a little scared, and he was circling to his left a lot. And I kept saying, right before the knockout happened, I was like, he's circling to the left. He's gonna get dropped by the right. I said it, and it happened. You know, so and the guy I fought has a similar style and height to Ilia Topuria. Heavy boxer, always loaded right hand. So stylistically, I knew like, hey, you're doing the wrong thing against this guy. You're circling to his power shot. This guy throws overhand rights like that's the only thing he does. You know, he throws a lot of hooks. The guy I fought is heavy in the boxing side, and I felt like was like a junior Ilia Topuria, honestly. So I'm glad Ilia Topuria won. I'm hoping to crush everyone this year, and me and him line it up next year or something like that. I would love that fight.
hindsight is 2020, but do you feel like Volkanovski's decision to take the featherweight title defense so quickly after the Islam Makhachev knockout was a mistake, or do you feel like we make too much of that?
That was a mistake. That's also another thing I told everyone. I'm like, he fought a week after me. He got knocked out in October. I started training for this fight in November. That means he had to have started sparring and training latest by December. So I don't think that's enough time for your brain to recover. I feel like you need probably 3 solid months after a head kick knockout, at least 3 months of not doing anything, and then another couple months, month or so to get back into shape, and then another couple months. So I think he should have fought 6 months later, honestly, if he was being smart for his career. But that's another thing about it. Like he can't. He took the Makhachev fight because he's feeling depressed. He took this fight because he had to defend his title. I feel like he's either responding to pressure or he's responding to just how he feels and not having not using his head to do smarter business decisions. I mean, that's just my take on it.
Well, before we wrap things up here, once again, I really do appreciate the time. It's great to meet you, great to chat with you, and I have a feeling we'll probably chat more in the future. I want to give you the platform to shout out your team, shout out everybody back home. I'll give you the platform to give a final word before we get out of here.
All right, follow me at Hurricane_415. Shout out to my team, Scrap Pack El Nino. Bay Area people, I love y'all. I'm coming back a winner. Can't wait till my next fight to represent you guys.
Absolutely. Well, Hyder, it was great to meet you. Great to chat with you. All the best with these next few weeks, and I'm sure we'll chat again soon. Thank you so much.